Good evening, everyone. So I should be live now on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. So if you're joining from any of those platforms, then welcome. I just rushed home from the office. So I had a day in the office today, which was lovely. Getting to actually meet people in person, kind of post the pandemic, is really, really nice. I think you really miss the value of like actual human interaction once you've had to spend kind of almost 2 years communicating with people on Zoom. So really appreciate kind of going into the office now and connecting with people in person and just having things like meetings and stuff in person now. It's really nice. But anyway, I digress. I'm kind of veering off topic. So I scheduled this live today. Really because I was really kind of bowled over by some of the support that you guys showed me in my first live a couple of weeks ago. So thank you everyone for attending. And then also because I am one of the candidates up for election for the Royal Pharmaceutical Society English Pharmacy Board. The voting starts on Friday, I think, which is the 29th, and I think it's open for 2 weeks from memory. And I just wanted to kind of share some insights about myself, really, to you guys. So if you're participating in that election, then you have some information to be able to make kind of an informed decision. This is one of a couple of events that I've got scheduled over the next few weeks. So I will definitely provide details of the other events nearer the time. But thank you anyone who's joined. Like I said, streaming from 3 platforms at the moment. So LinkedIn, YouTube, and also on Facebook. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. So I don't think I've got any comments or questions at the moment, but a couple of people did send some in to me previously. So I'll just start answering some of those until we get some actual kind of live questions. So one of the first questions that I got asked by someone who reached out on LinkedIn actually was, why are you standing for the elections at the Royal Pharmaceutical Society? There's a couple of reasons, really. I guess like I put myself out there quite a lot. And the reason for that is, as I was training and even as a kind of a young child and as a young professional, I didn't see very many people in leadership positions that looked like me or that I could relate to. So I found it really difficult to see myself in those positions. And I've been fortunate enough to go along a trajectory that means that I've got a really influential position now with a great company, and I'd really like to use that to be able to show people that actually it doesn't matter what your background is. It doesn't matter what your ethnic origin is, whether you have a disability, what your sexual orientation is. Any of those characteristics don't matter. You can still be leading. You should definitely be one as well. So I would encourage anyone in any of those categories and other categories as well to really just come forward and actually just represent, really, because there will be people out there who really are kind of looking for someone to aspire to. I hope that at least one person kind of sees that their true potential just by seeing someone that maybe they can relate to. And that's really the reason that I kind of put myself out there. And that's one of the reasons that I kind of am running for the elections. The other thing is I have a very diverse job. So I work for a tech company. For those that you don't know, a company called Babylon. And I have a very varied role. And that means I probably have a very different perspective to some of the other board members that already exist, or maybe some of the other people running up for the election as well. And I think true diversity in thought comes from true diversity. So, that's one of the other reasons that I'm standing. And I'm sure I'll share other reasons as the kind of evening goes on, and actually in other communications that I send out. So please feel free to send in questions. I can see Darren, you joined. Thank you for your question. So I'll just read it out. So what are your thoughts about the RPS leaving the FIP, so Pharmaceutical International Federation for International Pharmacists? I work for a global company. So we carry out clinical services in not just the UK, but also in Rwanda and the States. Hopefully as the organisation grows, we'll spread our clinical services across the globe. And I think there's some real value in sharing insights and learnings and networking with people in other countries and with different challenges. So I'm very for us maintaining our relationship with them. So that's something that I would definitely be being quite vocal about if I am elected. I think there's some real value in, so like my experience in working with some of the guys in the States and Rwanda, like they have some really unique challenges. I've learned a lot from them. And I think that equally they've learned a lot from me. So there's been a lot of really good exchange of shared learning. So that's definitely something that I'll be quite vocal about should I be elected to the board. So thank you for your question, Darren. I can't see any more there at the moment, so I'll just continue with some of the other questions that I have. Let me just have a quick look at what I have actually. I think I talked quite a lot about my background the last time I did a live, so unless you have any specific questions about that, then I won't go into it. Bear with me 1 second whilst I just look it up. Unfortunately, like I said, I've just rushed in from the office, and that means that I'm not best organised right now, so apologies for that. Let me have a quick look. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so someone's just asked about advice for kind of actually putting themselves out there. So no, you can stay there, Darren, it's fine. It's not a problem. So someone's just asked for some advice on them considering positions on things like the board and elections and various other kind of leadership positions. What do they, what's my experience in it, and how would they go about doing that? I think one thing that I've learned a lot over the last 2 to 3 years, I think, particularly with the pandemic, I think networking is really important. I think there's a lot to be learned from people in other sectors, and also just general colleagues, with different levels of experience and different kind of roles, etc. I think there's so much that we can learn from each other. I think it's really important to network, and I think that in terms of actually kind of putting yourself out there, I think that makes it a bit more comfortable. So, if you know people who are willing to support you, for example, so with the Royal Pharmaceutical Society elections, you had to have 10 RPS members nominate you. And so I had to reach out to at least 10 members in order to get details and credentials and that kind of stuff. And it's much easier when you, when you network and you have relationships with people, and they're not just about getting something out of them. It's a genuine, like, mutual relationship where you both have kind of a real mutual benefit. So I would certainly suggest that if you don't do that already, then please do. I think with the kind of pandemic, it's actually been a lot easier to network because you can do it digitally. I myself use LinkedIn quite a lot. There's a lot of people quite active on Twitter. You've also got other social media, so Facebook, etc. Just put yourself out there, and what's the worst that could happen? And that's what I kind of tell myself if I'm reluctant about kind of reaching out to someone. The worst is actually they won't respond, and that does happen. And people are busy, and they have different priorities. But actually, I've had quite a few people reach out with really positive reactions. So my experience so far has been very, very positive. It's I think is a great learning opportunity. So I think I ran for election last year and didn't get placed on the board, and it's not a problem. I think you learn much more in your failure than you do when you're successful. So I take everything as a learning opportunity, and we'll definitely take that on board, whether or not I'm successful this time around as well. So I would really just think about what's the worst that could happen, and use that to kind of spur you on. And also networking makes it much, much more comfortable. So I can see a couple more questions. I'm very bad at multitasking, so apologies if I don't make any sense. But Shazad, highly been apologies if you've already touched on this, but what would be your top priorities as a board member after election? So there's a few things really that I'd like to focus on. I think over the pandemic, so I'm going to keep coming to this. Over the pandemic, I think it's really magnified the problem that we have with mental health and well-being in our profession. I think that there's a lot of room for us to improve the support that we provide. Us being able to openly talk about mental health and well-being, us taking positive steps to support our well-being. I think that's super, super important. And although some people do, a lot of pharmacists don't. They don't prioritise that in their kind of time, and then also just kind of building resilience as well. So, like I said, I personally think I learn much more in my failures than I do in my successes. So I think that it's definitely just something that you should take as a learning opportunity if you do fail. So that's the first thing. Second thing, I'd really like to help support with pharmacists becoming prescribers, but also make the most of those who become prescribers when they graduate in kind of 2027. I've been really successful at really kind of utilising the skills of pharmacists at my current organisation. We're really recognised within the organisation, actually externally as well, as really kind of stretching the scope of pharmacists and really being experts in our area. So, in our organisation, if there was a complex prescribing decision, you'd go to a pharmacist. You wouldn't go to any other healthcare professional. We're very known for that, and we have quite robust training and processes to enable and empower our pharmacists to be able to do that. So I'd really like to help our profession along that journey. So I think actually, we really need to start thinking about how we're going to do that now. So how we're going to prep the guys who are already prescribers, the gap between those who are not, maybe want to qualify before 2027, and also those who will be graduating as prescribers, because there isn't a one size fits all, and we need to kind of find a solution for everyone. So that'll be a real priority as well. And then I'm sure a lot of candidates say this, but diversity is definitely something quite high on my agenda. I'm known within our organisation to really advocate for diversity. So I work for a tech company, and unfortunately, there are sections of our company that are not very diverse, simply because it's in the tech sector. It's not, exclusive to our organisation. It's just a tech-wide problem. I really advocate for it. I was actually really fortunate enough to attend a meeting with the RPS on it was something called an ABCD meeting, and the guys who were presenting actually went through some of the successes that they've had with diversity in some of their organisations. And at this point in time, we didn't have a kind of formal a structure. We didn't have any formal kind of arrangements when it came to diversity and inclusion. And I was super impressed by everything that everyone had done. But in particular, there was one organisation that was global. I had won awards for their diversity and inclusion. So I reached out to the individual and was able to get the details of the organisation that helped them along that journey. And we actually then went through a process of employing them. So they've been doing some work for us over the last 4 to 5 months, actually. And we're looking forward to having the results and an action plan from them within the next few weeks. And that was really all spurred on because I actually attended an RPS meeting, made connections there, reached out, got some information, and then took that back to my organisation and really made a case for and said, we need to do this. So I'd really like to be able to extend that in other parts of the pharmacy world. So would be looking forward to doing that, whether I'm successful or not. Quite honestly, so they're the kind of key things that I would like to focus on should I be elected. But there are, there's lots of priorities, and I think that one thing that I'd like to do is listen. So I hopefully do this with my team anyway. So I listen to kind of what their kind of needs and wants are, and actually if there are differing priorities and if there's a consensus that actually something needs to be focused on, then I'm happy to kind of advocate for that as well. Another question here from Darren. So what skills do you bring to the EPB that are missing at the moment? I think that I would like to think that I bring a very different perspective. So I work in a job that is very autonomous, very creative. I am really fortunate to be able to learn so much and absorb so much from our tech colleagues, for example. They have some really kind of robust processes and procedures surrounding the way that they design products, for example, the way that they troubleshoot if there's an incident, the way that they create things. And they do that in a really kind of diverse way. So they try and get as many kind of opinions as possible, but also everyone's listened to. So I'd really like to kind of bring that fresh perspective to the board. I think I think there's some great people on it, and there's some great candidates running for election as well. But I think the thing that I would bring to it is a very different perspective. So I'd be looking at things from a very different lens, and maybe be able to offer some different solutions maybe that other people haven't thought of. Okay, so Katie, hi Nabila, do you feel women are represented enough on the board currently, and what could you do to ensure it continues to encourage more women to apply and make it on the board? So we do have a fair few women on the board at the moment. I think that the landscape is changing. Our president is a female, and the chair of the board, Thorin, is a female as well. So that's really great to see that that's coming through. I think we need to represent diversity in other ways. So I would like to see more people from ethnic minorities and other ethnic minorities, maybe people with other protected characteristics like and just being represented, people from different sectors, Like I said, I work from a tech company, so I'm in a very unique kind of position. So I'd like to see much more diversity on the board, and also all of those people kind of feeling as though they have a voice, and being able to use that voice and feeling as, you know, having the psychological safety to be able to express their opinion and feel listened to as well. So I'd really love to see that. So I think that's it in terms of the live questions at the moment. So we might have some more coming in a second. So I'm just going to continue with some of the previous questions that I have. So bear with me whilst I just quickly look them up. Okay, brilliant. So I've got a question here, and it's with regards to FIP as well, actually. So I've already covered that. Oh, there's another question here, actually. From Uzma. Hi, Uzma. I hope you're well. How can RPS support people experiencing bullying in the workplace, in particular at senior levels? I think that's a tricky one. I think bullying in the workplace is, you know, I think lots of people like to think that it doesn't happen, but it really does. I think probably going back to my point about mental health and well-being. So, you know, if you're experiencing bullying and harassment in your workplace where you spend most of your time, you're probably not going to be in the best kind of mental health, you know, and you probably would benefit from support. So I think that's one way in which the RPS can help signpost you. I think just recognising bullying as well. So I think that there are some people who unfortunately experiencing bullying and you know, don't realise that is happening, and you know, just you know, affects obviously their you know, mental health and well-being, and then you know, it can have an impact on them. You just added some detail to the question. Let me just have a quick look. So focusing here on pharmacy as a group of professionals. So I think it like I said, it's a difficult one. I think you know, it happens. We know it happens. I think building awareness. So if we're looking at the group rather than particular individuals, I think building awareness of behaviours that allow us to reflect on kind of our own personal behaviours, but also allow us to reflect on behaviours of others that we work on. I think that it might be worth sharing some, I don't know, education about the reasons for bullying, maybe. You know, it usually comes from a place of insecurity when that happens. So, you know, I think that there's some work that could be done there. Having said that, I'm not an expert in this area. You know, I guess if this was something that was highlighted as something that was a concern for lots of people, so lots of members, for example, then we could definitely look into it and definitely kind of focus on it. But you know, it wouldn't be my area of expertise, so it'd be something that I would have to go away and kind of have a think about what the options were. And what we could do to kind of help better support both groups of individuals and individuals who were in this experience. But you know, I completely understand it may not be, it may be a difficult thing to be able to deal with and experience in a workplace. I hope that's answered your question, Ozma. If not, please feel free to message me again, and I'm happy to elaborate a little bit. I've just got another couple of minutes, so I'm just going to see if there's any other questions from anyone that's live, first of all. And I can't see any there, which is great. Okay, let me just go to one of my other questions. So I can see that one of my questions is, how would you support those pharmacists who haven't made it, who are qualified but haven't made it onto the independent prescribing course. So I think a lot needs to be done in this particular area. So we may be left with a huge population of pharmacists that actually may be left without the prescribing qualification and may be left, potentially underskilled. So I think we need to do as much as we can to support these people. I think the main question that I get asked really from people reaching out to me via social media or other avenues is how do they get their mentors, prescribing mentors, and I think that we need to take more of a structured approach. Really help enable people to be able to find people easier, designated supervisors easier, and also be able to I've just noticed that Osma's have written something there again. Thanks. It's a difficult area, but I do feel support is needed when people speak up. I think you're absolutely right there, Osma, actually. I think kind of just digressing a little bit, I think that not enough of us actually speak up for people when we recognise that kind of behaviour is occurring. And I think we do that because potentially we don't want the conflict or we don't want to be victims of it ourselves. And I think actually training groups of individuals on how to, I think confront is the wrong word, but actually speak up when that kind of behaviour is recognised, so that we can do that in a kind of non-confrontational way, because that will probably make it worse. So maybe there's room to kind of improve that kind of area of it. But thank you for that question. That was a really interesting and thought-provoking question, Osma. Thank you for that this evening. Okay, lovely. Let's see if we've got any other questions here. I can't see any more live. So I will just see if I can squeeze one more in. Okay, lovely. So I've got one question here just about opportunity, so pharmacist opportunity. So do pharmacists get enough opportunity within the NHS? And I think this is coming from more of a commissioning point of view, so from a community pharmacist point of view. And I strongly think we don't. So I think that actually our community pharmacist colleagues have loads of potential. My background is in community, so I worked in community for kind of several years, and recognise that building of relationship and trust between yourself and patients is super valuable. They'll share information with you that maybe they won't share with other healthcare professionals because they've got a really established relationship with you, you're accessible. You've got loads of expertise, so you've got loads of knowledge and skills that you're able to kind of use and help manage things like long-term conditions, and also with the advent of kind of using the prescribing qualification in community as well. I think that's a really exciting time. I would really like to get my teeth stuck into utilising the prescribing course in community far better. I think it's taken us far too long to do anything with it, and those that do actually just do it in a far too restrictive way. So I'd really love to help kind of push that forward, really, and do that via things like commissioning to earn people money. We're going through difficult times at the moment, and we want to be able to first of all be paid for the great work that we do, and then also just be able to earn more of an income as well, I think, in those particular areas. So that's lovely. Great. I can't see any other live questions. So I'm going to draw it to a close. I think you should be able to view this on YouTube, Facebook and LinkedIn later on. Please message me if you can't for any reason, and I'll take a look into it. But thank you everyone for joining and asking any of the questions. It's been a pleasure to kind of participate in this. And like I said, I'll be providing more events and more opportunities for you to kind of connect. But please don't feel like you need to wait until then. Please feel free to reach out. I have said in a couple of other forums that it is Ramadan, so I'm observing Ramadan and fasting. And towards this time of the day, my focus really dwindles. So apologies for that. And that means that I'm probably not as responsive on messaging, etc. So please just be patient, but I will get back to you. But thank you very much again for all of you who joined me. Have a lovely evening, and I hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you.